SmartB Sports Update Podcast is brought to you by Optimum CBD. For all your rest and recovery needs, CBD products are your best bet. Go to OptimumCBD.store to order now. Free delivery on all orders over $99. You must be over 18 to order. I use Optimum CBD products personally for my rest and recovery. I train 6 days a week in Jiu-Jitsu, as you've probably heard on the SmartB Sports Update Podcast. I teach, I train, I compete. And without Optimum CBD products, I wouldn't be able to do it. Optimum CBD for all your rest and recovery needs.
Yeah, who said it was the off-season in the NRL? Rugby League's the gift that keeps on giving. We're into a test series between Australia and India. But yet it's Rugby League that continues to dominate the headlines. So,
honestly, I think the AFL needs to learn something from that. Because, their restrictions on... They try to keep their, AFLW and stuff in the news, but it's not as entertaining as all the stuff, the soap opera that is Rugby League. It looks like Andrew Voss's worries and demands about needing us to appoint a coach before the end of the year. As we discussed, I said, that's what happened last time.
Yeah, I hope Andrew Voss is happy. I hope it's not too late for him. I hope the appointment's been made early enough for him. Remembering the first game is in late May, so that's nearly 6 months away. So hopefully for Vossi, the appointment's been made early enough for him to be happy with that. He was a bit he was getting a bit hot under the collar. He was worried a couple of weeks ago they weren't going to make the appointment of the coach early enough, even though game one is nearly 6 months away. So yeah, hopefully he's okay now. Hopefully he can breathe easily now that the New South Wales coach has been announced in early December, going into game one, which is just around the corner in late May.
They did it a bit late this year. Last year, as we discussed last week, last year it was the 30th of November. This year, 2nd of December. So it was a bit late there. I was getting a bit worried.
Oh yeah. Oh, wow.
So Laurie Daley has officially been given his second stint with Craig Bellamy to act as advisor for some reason.
Yeah, look, I did do a column on this on our website yesterday. I don't understand this decision. It makes no sense to me. Laurie Daley coached New South Wales for 5 series between 2013 and 2017, and he only had the 1 series win in 2014. I know we've pointed out quite a few times Queensland had a great side at that time. Let's remember that Queensland won 11 out of 12 series between 2006 and 2017. And we should remember that before Laurie Daley got there in 2013, Queensland had won 7 series in a row between 2006 and 2012. So certainly not pinning that whole era of Queensland dominance on him, of course. Queensland had, Cameron Smith, Jonathan Thurston, Billy Slater, Cooper Cronk, Greg Inglis in their team at that time. So it was a great side, and Laurie Daley did end their winning streak of 8 straight series wins in 2014 with that series win, and we should also point out that was really well done for him to win that series. Because Queensland had a better side in 2014. On paper, Queensland should have won that series. New South Wales pinched it from them. But then he went and lost 3 series in a row. So you would have thought 3 strikes and you're out. He's the coach. He's lost 3 straight series. I would have thought at that point you don't come back to the role in 2025. I don't understand it. And then he's brought in Craig Bellamy as his advisor. Well, Craig Bellamy lost 3 series in a row himself as New South Wales coach. So what, is it a prerequisite now that to be involved in the Blues coaching team you have to have lost 3 straight series in the past?
They did definitely have a much better team in 2000. What year was it?
The
win? 2014, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. They did definitely have Queensland did definitely have a way better team. And that was when Trent Hodkinson and Josh Reynolds literally stole the match in the...
and I remember in that series, it was things like, I remember Josh Reynolds Josh Reynolds really got under the skin of Jonathan Thurston. He did little niggling. He had some little niggling tactics. Like I think he slapped him in the face a couple of times, and he really did a really good job of getting under Jonathan Thurston's skin. Up to that point, New South Wales really let Queensland, boss them around between 2006 and 2013 when they won those 8 in a row. So it was smart from Daley to put Josh Reynolds in there along with Trent Hodkinson, and obviously, Josh Reynolds played the spoiler. He got under Thurston's skin, niggled him, and as I said, slapped him in the face a couple of times, and then made him look silly.
That was the year that there was like those really hardcore heroics where like Brett Morris broke himself and Josh Morris also broke himself in the first game.
Yeah.
Brett Morris made a result.
Yeah, I think it was they made a really good cover tackle. I think from memory.
He was down. One of the Morrises was down injured, and then got up and ran down one of the Queensland players, and the other he was out for the next few weeks or something, and then the other Morris made a cover tackle to prevent a try and injured himself. So both Morrises were that was the first game. It was so long ago. Who knows? Yeah, it's a strange choice. Like they may as well have brought back Ricky Stewart.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, that the problem that Bellamy had when he was coaching the New South Wales team, and of course he's been, as you pointed out, he's been installed into this newly created role of advisor to the coaching team for New South Wales. The problem Bellamy had when he coached those 3 series was he coached the New South Wales team like they were a club side, and Origin coaching is less about, which line you're going to run on this play, and it's a lot more about just out-and-out passion for the jersey and effort areas and effort plays, giving 100%, giving your all, bleeding for your state. That's what Origin coaching's about. It's not about overthinking the set plays. And that was the knock on Bellamy when he coached New South Wales, losing those 3 straight series. And you have to say that, it was valid criticism. He didn't get results when he was there. He coached them like they were a club side. And, of course, he's one of the great club coaches. He's just coached his 10th grand final. He's won 5 grand finals. Of course, two of the premierships were stripped. We'll point that out again. But this was the knock on him. And so, and then you go... And then you go, well, then it's suited to someone like Daley because he's an Origin legend. And you go, but he's been there before and he only won 1 series out of 5. So you would have thought they would have looked to someone else to play that role. And I guess the obvious choice for me, and doing some reading about it, would have been maybe a Matt King, who was Michael Maguire's assistant in orchestrating that 2024 series win earlier this year, of course. So he would have been the logical choice, I would have thought, someone like a Matt King. They've gone back to Daley. It seems to me that this Bellamy pitch, I guess Daley, it seems to me, has gone to them and said, well, if you hire me, I'm going to team up with Craig Bellamy. He's agreed to do it if you give me the job. And it seems to me that that's what's got him over the line here, but my question again would be, well, Craig Bellamy didn't have a good coaching record at New South Wales. Coached 3 series and lost them all.
Yeah, I don't know. The polls on the internet are like, is it a good coach? Is it a bad choice? Is it a good choice? Is it a bad choice? Is it too early to tell? And bad choices, 40%. And too early to tell is 30% of like 45 and 35, and then yes.
I'm sure Andrew Voss doesn't think it's too early to tell.
He's like, definitely not too early to tell. Definitely no. But I don't know. Like now with the teams, you look at the what year was it this year?
It's 2024.
So the 2024 State of Origin teams, they were more even. When you compare the 2 teams to each other, they were a little bit more even, kind of thing. And so to me, it's an interesting experiment to see how Laurie Daley does without having that ridiculous Queensland squad. But one of the things about criticisms about Laurie Daley as the head coach all the time was he's like too much of a nice guy, and didn't drop players that should have been dropped, and things like that. So. you know, like, is it 2024? Who was dropped this year? Like Nico Hines, for example, was dropped after game 1 in 2024. And I don't think anyone can say it was unfairly dropped.
No.
You know, Nico Hines is the new Mitchell Pearce, like Mitchell Pearce 2.0, cops all the blame for everything that happens no matter what team he's in. But, you know, Mitchell Moses came back and you got to think, would Laurie Daley have the harshness to have dropped Nico Hines to bring in Mitchell Moses? And then you think, like, well, Craig Bellamy definitely does that about him. So maybe it's a masterstroke. I don't know. Like, obviously, I'm leaning straight away into well, this is just weird and stupid, but it's always too early to tell in the end. Like, Michael Maguire was a great decision, and, you know, you assumed it was, and then really you found out at the end of the series. That's the only time you really know.
And the other problem with this decision to appoint Laurie Daley is, well, what if he loses his first series? And then people will go, well, he lost his last 3 in his last stint, and then he's lost the first series here. So then the pressure will be there to move on him after 1 lost series because he lost his previous 3. So that'd be then 4 straight series losses for Laurie Daley. So that's the difference. If it had been someone like a Matt King and he loses a series, well, you go, well, it's only 1 series. We'll keep him. I think Matt King would get at least 2 series.
Yeah.
You wouldn't move on him after 1 series, even if they lost it. But that'll be the problem if Daley loses the series next year, is people will go, well, it's not just your first series loss. That's coming off 3 straight series losses in your last stint. So that's really 4 in a row. For Daley, so then the pressure would be on to make another change to the New South Wales coach.
They signed him to a 4-year agreement as well.
Look, to be honest, I did a fair bit of reading on this, the Daley appointment, and I didn't see any. There was no indication of how long his contract is. No indication at all. I wasn't able to find that. I'm happy to be corrected if you can.
I can see from my immediate search 1 2-year and 1 4-year. So
conflicting reports, yeah. I wasn't too sort of fussed about that because I sort of thought, well, if he loses the first series, I think he's going to be really under the pump and he probably won't get a second. I'd say he probably won't, regardless of how long the contract is. If he loses the first series, I'd say he probably won't get a second series.
If the reports of 4 years is true, though, it's a bigger payout that New South Wales has to do.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I to be honest, I know there are conflicting reports. I find it hard to believe it'd be 4 years. Why would it be 4 years? You'd only need to give him 2 years and then just see how it goes for the first year, and then if it doesn't go well, you've only got to pay him out 1 series.
And then Craig Bellamy is meant to retire at the end of this year, so I guess they're maybe have plans to move him into like a permanent role kind of thing, or they're inventing a new role of this coaching, whatever the hell he is, coaching advisor for the New South Wales Rugby League. New South Wales Rugby League has a history of doing like weird things, you know. Obviously Queensland were the first ones out of the two to appoint a full-time coach. But New South Wales has a history of doing things like naming Kurt Gidley as the captain on the bench because they were too nice to drop him or take away his captaincy. Just weird things. And so now they've got this coaching advisor role. It's not an assistant coach, you know? Like, it's just a weird role, but maybe they just have plans for next year for Craig Bellamy to take over as some kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe. We have been waiting a while for Craig Bellamy to quit as Storm coach, haven't we? Every year you think he's going to do it and then he doesn't do it. Yeah. I'll tell you what, Brad Fittler might feel hard done by this appointment of Laurie Daley. I mean, I know Brad Fittler came in after that raft of Queensland legends had retired, but Brad Fittler's record in 6 series was 3 series won, 3 series lost, and I know that's 50-50. It's not setting the world on fire, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot better than 1 win from 5 series.
Brad Fittler also only lose 2 in a row?
Yeah, exactly. He didn't lose 3 series in a row. He won 2, lost 1, won 1, and then lost 2. He never lost 3 series in a row. So, that's another reason why he'd be looking at it going, well, you've got rid of me with a 3 wins, 3 losses in series record. and replace me with someone who's got a 1-win, 4 losses record. It just doesn't make sense to me because there were other options available to them. Yeah. It wasn't as if he was the only option, as if he was the only one sort of left standing among a bunch of candidates who'd pulled out. Like that wasn't the scenario here. There were other options. I certainly think Matt King would have been a better option. I know Michael Ennis was suggested. I don't know about Michael Ennis, to be honest.
You never know how they are as a coach.
Yeah, you don't know how they... I know you just get influenced by how they are as a commentator, and to be honest, he just drives me mad as a commentator, and so you can't help but let that sort of cloud your judgment a bit when you're thinking about how they would go as a coach. But as you say... being a commentator is one thing, being a coach is another, and maybe in that scenario Ennis would have done a better job, but certainly at least Ennis would have been a new option as opposed to Daley, who he's had his go and it didn't work out too well. I would have thought you move in a different direction. Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense, but we'll wait and see what happens and what Laurie Daley does and what Craig Bellamy does. And apparently they've kept the assistants. Laurie Daley's kept the Michael Maguire's assistants. So.
Yeah, and he did mention Laurie Daley as well when he was asked that he is looking to pick pretty much solely on form. So the way I'd interpret that is, I think if Maguire had have stayed there as coach, I think that would have worked better for Mitchell Moses because he was the halfback who got the job done. And I think Maguire would have been more inclined to stick with Moses given that he'd done the job previously. But I think with Daley taking over, I think that puts a question mark over. It's going to be a lot more about form. As we said, that there's probably a good chance it'll be Moses and Cleary in the halves. But then again, you got Luai there as well. So if Luai goes gangbusters for the Tigers in the early part of next year, well, how do you count him out? So I do think the fact that Maguire's gone and Daley's taking over, that I guess that doesn't play as well for Mitchell Moses as it would have if Maguire had stayed there.
Yeah. Speaking of Luai... the Tigers CEO, who is the Tigers CEO?
Shane Richardson.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Says that the Tigers have the best spine in the competition. Now, this is a funny quote because if you gave someone all the stats and specifications of the spines of the competition, right, awards and stuff like that, and took out the names of the teams. Okay, I was thinking about this since I saw this nonsense quote, and completely left out the team record. So you just had the players, okay, their achievements, their stats, their contribution to the game. The Tiger spine is actually would be up there, with Jerome Luai, 4-time premiership winner, Appy Coruscant, Origin player, and I believe has he won a premiership?
Coruscant.
Yeah. Oh no, he was at Panthers only for 2015. Oh no, he was in 2022.
Let me check. Yeah.
So he won a premiership. 2 premierships. 2-time premiership winner, Appy Coruscant.
Yeah.
You would think that actually their spine is really, really, really good. But then when you add the tagline of Tigers to it, and for the Tigers, doesn't matter who you put in there, Shane Richardson just sounds like a madman.
Yeah, well, I mean, he says they're the best spine in the comp. Penrith have got Dylan Edwards. And even next year without Luai, they'll have Blaze Talangi at 5'8", Nathan Cleary and Mitch Kenny. With Edwards and Cleary there, that for me, that's a better spine than the Tigers.
Yeah, I wouldn't put the West Tigers as the best spine in the...
No,
but they're up there, if you know what I mean? If you leave out the fact that they're at the Tigers and you just take the players from around the league. Melbourne, it's a ridiculous thing to say because Melbourne has Jerome Hughes and Cameron Munster. So even though Jerome Luai and Appy Coruscant are there, there's those two guys, if you were picking a team tomorrow of the best players in the league, like best halves, just you can even go down to the halves, right? Obviously, you're going to go halfback Nathan Cleary. If Nathan Cleary isn't available, you're going to go Jerome Hughes. If Jerome Hughes isn't available, you're going to go Mitchell Moses or Daly Cherry Evans. Those two are interchangeable depending on how you feel. After that, there's really like, I don't know, no one. You know? And so you can actually... And then you look at the other halves, like the 5'8", like you're going to go Cameron Munster, most likely. And if Cameron Munster's not available, you're going to go Jerome Luai, and maybe Mitchell Moses can fill in there. But Jerome Luai's up there. And then hookers, who have you got? Like, Api Coruscant is one of the best hookers in the competition. Who's the Tigers? Well, future immortal Lachlan Galvin is going to be in the halves.
Yeah.
And Buller is their fullback, yeah?
Yeah.
But then you also have to take into account that we've discussed at length all year with, like, Mitchell Pearce, with Craig Gower, with everyone in the world. There are no halves in the world, you know, in the competition at the moment. There's so few of them. So you go to somewhere like Brisbane, right? Brisbane have Reece Walsh, and then Billy Walters is their hooker, who's not bad, but he's not Jerome Luai or Api Carousel level. And now Ben Hunt's gone there.
And I guess they'll be hoping that once Ezra... I guess it's going to be trouble for Billy Walters there once... We don't know what's going to happen with Ezra Mam. Who knows how long he'll be suspended for. But whenever Ezra Mam comes back, that's going to spell trouble for Billy Walters now. A, because he's lost the safety net of his dad being the coach. And B, because once Ezra Mam is back, he'll partner Reynolds in the halves and they'll move Ben Hunt into hooker.
Yep.
So that's going to be real trouble for Billy Walters.
If you look at that spine, Reece Walsh, Ezra Mam, Adam Reynolds, Ben Hunt, if all four of them can get on the field at the same time, that's probably overall the best spine in the NRL. You know,
it's certainly better than the Tigers one in my view. And, you know, you talked about the Melbourne spine before. You mentioned Munster and Hughes. Yeah, Pappenhausen, Harry Grant. I mean, that's a better spine than the Tigers one. And look, even if this were true, I mean, I don't think it's true what Shane Richardson said. Even if it were true, I think maybe just don't say it publicly. This is a team that's coming off 3 straight wooden spoons. Not the smartest move to be then coming out and saying your team's got the best spine in the competition. Maybe focus on getting off the bottom of the ladder first before you worry about having the best spine in the competition. And I know some people... Look, Phil Gould said he thinks the Tigers are going to make the 8 next year. I think that's a bit of a bridge too far. And look, it's probably Phil Gould just doing his old trick of taking pressure off his own team by talking up other teams. So I wouldn't read a whole lot into that. But that having been said, I think the question is, will the Tigers avoid the spoon next year? The question is not, will they make the 8? They need to avoid the spoon first.
Like, overall, I'd put the Tigers' spine in the top 10.
Yeah, you probably get away with that.
Yeah, like I don't know where in the top 10 because I can't remember what every single spine is off the top of my head, but probably in the top 10 just with like Api Coruscant, 2-time premiership winner. I think he got Hooker of the Year one year, and he's played Origin, and then Jerome Luai, who is obviously Jerome Luai, who's won Origin. You know, he's won 4 premierships in a row. He's probably been a 5/8 of the Dally M 5/8 of the year 5 times or something as well. Sir Samoa representative, like, and so on and so forth. But because what you're really doing, the easiest way to assess it is to eliminate the other squads first, right? See, when you have a squad, there's 17 teams in the NRL, and then you look at something like Melbourne, you know, Pappenhausen, Cameron Munster, Jerome Hughes, Harry Grant. And you go, now I need to see who is above them. Yeah? You know, you're obviously putting them at the high end of the thing. With the Tigers, you go, it'd be Buller, Luai, future immortal Lachlan Galvin. And Api Coruscant, and you go, who do I put below them? So obviously there's somewhere, you know, in the middle or something like that. I don't know, maybe Shane Richardson's trying to give him confidence.
Yeah, I don't know. But I just think there's been a couple of things he's done there, Richardson, that have sort of backfired. I mean, And, he's the CEO, so I don't think he can use this line of, someone else wrote the statement when we talk about how they congratulated Luke Brooks on playing in the finals this year, now that he's at another club. That was a really poor judgment call, that one, and I think this is another one. So he's making this habit of making these poor judgment calls, releasing club statements that shouldn't be released, making public statements that shouldn't be made, like this one. I think he just needs to keep quiet. The club need to work hard in the off-season. They need to start getting some results on the field before he can say anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, really the Tigers need to work on staying out of the news for 1 week. Whether it's leaks or statements, just 1 week. If they can achieve that, I think they've moved forward.
But you know that if you're the Tigers CEO and you come out and say that your team's got the best spine in the competition, you know that most fans are just going to laugh at that, and you're just making yourself more of a target than you already are.
Yeah. Continuing with Brandon Smith, who needs to work on staying out of the news.
Speaking of people who need to work on staying out of the news,
he's out for the year, and then they've actually, the Roosters apparently floated a swap with Reece
Robson, North Queensland,
and Brandon Smith just said no. You know what happens when that happens? Your team says, you know what, we're thinking of swapping you with this guy, and you say no. They just terminate your contract.
Yeah, or what they'll do is they'll say, all right, you can stay here, but you're playing in reserve grade.
We're not playing all year anyway because of his broken leg or ACL, whatever it is. So
yeah, and even if he, I don't know if it's the whole year. I don't know if he'll be back towards the end of the year.
Really
but even if he does come back later in the year, they might just say, well, you're not going to be playing first grade.
It's really late in the year. I think it's July or something.
Something like that.
He's losing more and more options, old mate. He better.
Yeah, well, the Raiders have already ruled out making a play for him.
Was that another one of those Ricky Stewart things where, I'm not going to be New South Wales coach? No one asked, bro. We're not taking Brandon Smith. Again, no one asked, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that just the Raiders trying to get in the news? Tigers can't stay out of the news. Raiders are trying to constantly get into the news.
And Brandon Smith even went as far as saying, I don't want to be in Townsville in this blistering heat. Look, listen, beggars can't be choosers, right? He's on the outs with his current club. He's going to be lucky to find another NRL club. The Raiders, as I said, have already said they want nothing to do with him, so they've ruled themselves out. He's coming out on his podcast saying, I don't want to go to Townsville because of the heat.
Bagged the Storm.
Meantime, he bagged Ryan Pappenhausen. He said he was small and fragile. He alienated his former club there at the Storm. He bagged the West Tigers after those players came back unfit. Seriously, he's bagging everyone else. He's throwing stones at everyone else. Meantime, his own club doesn't want him, and he's coming out saying he doesn't want to go to certain clubs, while other clubs are saying they don't want him either. So he needs to be really careful here that he doesn't end up without a job. He might be joining Ezra Mam or Josh Adokar on those building sites the way he's going.
Don't worry, I reckon
but then again, Josh Adokar's got a contract now. So.
I think the Titans will, at this point, will pretty much take anyone. So there's always the Titans for you, Brandon Smith, because they.
But if you're another club, you're looking at that going, I'm not signing this guy. Because think about all the baggage, right? Like he did well at the Storm, but then he's left the Storm. He hasn't lived up to expectations at the Roosters. He got a player who hasn't lived up to expectations at the club that he's at. Meantime, he's throwing stones at everyone else on a podcast. If you're another club, you're going, we're not touching this guy. We don't want to deal with this. He's not worth the trouble.
But yeah, as I said, the Titans will take anyone. They were 100% certainty to get Ben Hunt and missed out. They're desperate for recruitment right now, so Brandon Smith might just be left with one choice and one choice only. And they'll probably take him now, even with a broken leg. Just honestly, they've got no one. But yeah, he's running out of time, and he's at this point, you'd have to say he's definitely not going to have beat the Roosters in 2026. So he's got to, work on where he is going to be. Please don't go to the Dragons. He's one of my least favourite players in the league.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. You run through the clubs there. As I said, the Raiders have already ruled themselves out. All right, so yeah, the Roosters don't want him. They're his current club. The Raiders have ruled out signing him. He said that he doesn't want to go to the Cowboys because it's too hot. So if you're the Cowboys looking at that, you're going, all right, well, we don't want this bloke. He's bagged the Tigers for not being up to standard. So if you're the Tigers, you're going, well, we're not signing a player who's bagged us publicly, and they've got Coruscant anyway. So why would they want Brandon Smith when they got Coruscant? And he's not going to be going back to the Storm because he's alienated them because he had to go at Ryan Pappenhausen. So he's just ticking off all the clubs, going through all of them one by one and giving them reasons not to sign him. He's doing a really good job of either ending up on a building site or ending up in the Super League if anyone will take it.
He's going to the Super League. That's the other one. The Super League will definitely take him.
Yeah, so someone else. Okay.
Yeah, well, half of them will definitely take him. We're on Brandon Smith's club,
yes.
The Roosters. Mm-hmm. Scott Sattler has highlighted a few recruitment concerns over there, and you'd have to say he's got a point.
Yeah, well, they missed out on David Fafita, didn't they? He decided
he went there and then he cancelled, and then he went there and then he cancelled, and then
Yeah, well, in the end, the Roosters didn't sign David Fafita. He's staying with the Titans. And they've gone hard after Ben Hunt and not landed Ben Hunt. So Scott Sattler said, and I quote, "He's got to start moving some pieces of the puzzle soon, Nick Politis, because he would be quite annoyed. He's a guy a guy that's not used to not getting what he wants because he's been so successful in business through strategy, but he's missed out on David Fafita and now Ben Hunt. That's concerning." So, this is the thing. Are they now, are players looking at the Roosters looking at their terrible record against the Panthers and the Storm and going, well, they're not the club they once were in terms of luring players. That's two high-profile targets they've missed now in a short space of time.
They still have quite a good team, even with their losses. It's a little bit weird because they've got some massive losses. Like, Luke Keary's obviously gone. Joey Manu, Terrell May was let go and now gone to the West Tigers. Dylan Napa retired. Suoliti obviously went to Union. Tupanua off to your Bulldogs. Warrior Hargraves retired and then unretired to go to All KR. And their gains, you look at their gains, there's the Chad Townsend one, which is just bizarre, but he's obviously just there while Sam Walker is off broken. And then he's going to go into a media gig or whatever the hell they've got planned for. And they've just gained Toby and Tom Rodwell, right? So you think, oh my God, they're screwed. But then you look at who they've re-signed. Just from their current squad, Nat Butcher, who's a gun player, Lindsay Collins, who's a gun player, Angus Crichton, who's a gun player, Spencer Lanier, who's a gun player, Junior Palgar and Billy Smith. Sanders Smith obviously has some issues. He's got car accident or driving while under the influence or something like that. But the few games he played this year to cover for Keary or Sam Walker, he was really good. Daniel Tupu re-signed, and Siwa Wong, Connor Watson. So they have players. You just really got to sit there and wonder what... I don't think anyone can really puzzle out what the Roosters are doing.
No. Well, as we say, they had that terrible record where, and I don't have the stat right in front of me, it was something like 1 in 20 games or 1 in the last 21 games only that they've won against the Panthers and the Storm going back to about 2020, I think it is. It's something like that. Yeah. I don't have it right in front of me. But yeah, these worrying signs against those two teams, and they've done nothing really to combat that. You go, well, that's not going to change. Their lack of recruiting new players in on the whole. They've lost more than they've gained, of course, looking at it as a whole. And so then you go, well, with those players, they had that record against the Panthers and the Storm. So what's going to change next year? You can't see them making up any ground on those teams. If anything, they're just going to drop further down. The Broncos are a side, I think, who could go above them if Michael Maguire can get them right. They've got the roster, I think, to go above the Roosters. So if anything, you see the Roosters going backwards in 2025, not going forwards.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So they've retained a lot of really good players that are in their squad that have that record and have that issue. Got rid of a whole bunch of players that have that record and have that issue, and then signed nobody. So what? Like that's what.
Yeah,
you
this
look
is
at
the
Roosters
thing.
and you go, what is their plan?
This is the thing. You're not just gonna reverse a 1 in 21 win record against the Panthers and the Storm by letting Terrell May go.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
You need to do a bit more than that.
Nobody can understand their plan. It's really interesting to see like what the.
I think it looks to me like they've just written next year off, and then they're sort of going, oh well, we'll just wait for the right recruits to become available.
Well,
hopefully the right recruits become available for the year after.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. 1/3 of the league is off contracts for 2026.
Yeah, so, well, that's I think, well, looking at the recruitment, you can't help but think that they've written off 2025 and they're waiting for the right recruits to become
so much
available.
salary cap available now, and you would expect them to be recruiting for 2026 if that was a thing. That's why it's really weird, right? Because all these players left, they recruited no one, they re-signed a bunch of dudes, they've got all this money in the salary cap because they've let go of all these players, and even Terrell May as recently as like 2 weeks ago. They can be signing players for 2026 right now because it's post-November 1. They could also be signing players for 2025, or they could be signing players for 2026 and negotiating an early release. But they're doing nothing. And maybe it's because they're on holidays and something's going to change in January. But it just looks like, even like if they're writing off this year, why aren't they already making moves for 2026? It's just a bizarre... They look like they don't have a plan. To me, it looks like they don't know what to do. They're just like, we don't know what to do. We'll just wait and see what we're going to do. And that's not the way the Roosters are.
It's probably not a good sign for Trent Robinson either, because he needs to recruit new players to improve the situation, and if he doesn't improve the situation, his position's going to be coming under pressure. This is a team that since they won their last premiership in 2019 they've just gone backwards bit by bit every year since then. And that doesn't bode well for a coach who needs improvement to keep his job. Maybe, and I don't know, obviously I don't know this for a fact, maybe Politis wants him to fall over next year so he's got an excuse to let Trent Robinson go, and then and so it gives him, reason to bring in a new coach. That wouldn't surprise me either. Because they've been going backwards year after year under Trent Robinson.
Yeah, and you'd have to say, if you did, maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe that's what their plan is. Like, you're not having any. They're currently, like when they were getting rid of Ricky Stewart, they talked to Wayne Bennett on the sly and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and maybe going backwards is not a fair way of putting it. Maybe the way of putting it is they continue to underachieve.
Yeah,
that they continue to underachieve every year. Going backwards, maybe that's a bit harsh, but with every with every season that passes, you just feel like, oh, the Roosters underperformed again this year.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is maybe they just treat him like Ricky Stewart, and he whatever he does is good enough. Doesn't matter what it is, we'll just give him 5-year extension.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're going by the Ricky Stewart standard of being re-signed, then Robinson should get a 20-year contract.
Whatever you do is good enough, mate.
Yeah.
As long as you're here.
Well, you've won 3 premierships? 20-year deal.
You turned up to work today. There's an extra year. Well done, bro. Who knows? Over at Manly, Manly have extending or giving Anthony Seibold a new contract.
So his current deal was due to expire at the end of 2025. So he's set to get, I don't like saying contract extension because they don't exist. He's going to get a new contract until the end of 2027. I think he's very lucky. So in 2023 under Seibold, Manly finished 12th. And Tom Trbojevic played just 11 games in that season. In 2024 under Seibold, Manly finished 7th and reached week 2 of the finals. And Tom Trbojevic played 20 games. So I think that Anthony Seibold really should give a cut of his new contract to Tom Trbojevic.
Well, Tom Trbojevic wanted to take a cut of his contract Like, remember, he wanted to return some of the money.
That's the thing.
So
that's the thing. They pushed Tom Trbojevic to go to the NRL and try to get him to give some of his money back, like take a pay cut so they could spend the money on other players, which is pretty harsh when you consider that they rely solely on him to get results. If Trbojevic doesn't play more than 15 games, they seem to miss the 8. He plays 15 or more games, they make the 8. That seems to be the pattern here. I think that Seibold's lucky. The only reason he made the 8 was because Tom Trbojevic played a large chunk of the season this year.
This is the thing, right? There's been players in history where people will say, "Oh, they only win because Jonathan Thurston. Cowboys only win because Jonathan Thurston is there. Newcastle only win when Andrew Johns is there." Like things like that. But none of them, when you actually delve deep into the statistics, to be honest, in the history of the NRL that I can remember, have really been as glaringly obvious as Tom Trbojevic and Manly. There was things like, I remember there was one year with when they were going on about it with Newcastle, like fans were going on about it with Newcastle and Andrew Johns, and then you looked at it and actually they won 50% of the time he was in their team anyway. So they still lost 50% of the time. He wasn't making that much of a difference to their wins. It's Andrew Johns, so obviously he would do things where they would win games that maybe they shouldn't have won, or clutch plays that finish, that in tight games he could be the game breaker and stuff. But it was something like that. He still only won 50% of games, whereas with Manly, it's like I said, if he plays 15 games, they make the 8. They have to win 13 games to make the 8. If he plays 15, they win 13.
That's the thing. It was just the way he left the Broncos. It was so poor the way he left the Broncos. They signed him on a 5-year deal, and he couldn't even make it to the end of the second year.
Rabbitohs as well. Remember, he left the Rabbitohs early. It was him, yeah.
Yeah, I think he left the Rabbitohs because he got chased hard by the Broncos, and then
But he left his contract early. Moved from the Rabbitohs to the Broncos.
Yeah, he did leave early.
Yeah, and then got sacked from the Broncos because he didn't perform well.
And then he underperforms in the first year at Manly. They missed the 8. They finished 12th, and then
he performed exactly as expected with Tom Trbojevic.
I just think he's lucky. I think if he hadn't have made the 8, he wouldn't be getting this extension. And if Trbojevic hadn't have played enough games, they wouldn't have made the 8.
Yeah, that's why he didn't underperform. He performed exactly as expected.
I think Tom Trbojevic should get a cut of his contract. Give him 20% or 30% of it.
Last year, one of the things we said, if Anthony Seibold was a good coach, he would have spent the year cleaning up Manly's salary cap issues. And I think this year showed he didn't.
This is a problem. The coaches act in self-interest. They go, well, I need results now. My job's on the line. And they just ride it out and hope that Tom Trbojevic plays enough games for them to make the 8, which he did this year. Who knows if he will again next year.
Well, as long as he doesn't get picked for Origin, maybe he can play more. We're still going on about Kevin Walters.
Yes.
Seriously, it's time to get over it. But Billy Walters has come out.
Slater.
Walters. Billy Slater's come out and said this Broncos sacking of Kevin Walters was harsh. Now, they're good friends. I think Kevy coached Billy Walters at Origin level.
Billy Slater.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And so obviously Billy Slater has a little bit of loyalty to Kevin Walters.
Yeah.
But it's time to get over it and move on, man. Honestly.
Yeah, the quote from Billy Slater was, "You're so close to holding up a premiership trophy and 11 months later you're out the door. If you sack the players that played in last year's grand final, would you call it harsh?" Now, look, that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. Let's remember that the Broncos missed the finals in 3 out of the 4 years that Walters was there with a star-studded roster, so Slater has overlooked that completely, hasn't gone into that. They finished 12th this year as well. They didn't just miss the 8, they bombed out completely and finished 12th. It was also because the reason that the defining factor in Walters getting sacked was that he blew up at the staff after the review, gave it to them, and then it was after that he was sacked. The Broncos power brokers overheard the spray that he gave to the staff, and that was the last straw. That sent them over the edge, and they said, right, you're gone, mate. So that's the thing. There were these other factors at play to just be as simplistic as saying, oh, they made the grand final in 2023, so it's really harsh that he's been sacked only a year later. Yeah. I think that's a really simplistic way of looking at it. And yeah, I know they're mates, but you know, it's our job to sort of pick these statements apart and go, well, hang on, you haven't looked at the whole picture here. You've got to do a more thorough analysis than to just pin it on, oh, they made the grand final only a year ago, so it's harsh.
Yeah, well, they made the grand final over a year ago and then went terribly the following year with what looks like the players and staff not buying into the coaching style. And so what did Billy Slater really want? Them to go another year and get worse? Is that what he's...
That's the thing. I like the decision because they got on the front foot. As you say, remember that there were those calls, oh, you should give him the first 8 weeks or whatever and see how he goes. No, because then you lose another year. Yeah. If they go badly at the start of the year and they only win 2 of their first 8 games, well, that's another season gone. So at least they've got on the front foot. They're going, well, this isn't good enough. We want to act now because we want to get ahead of the curve here. And they've brought in a coach who has a better record than Kevin Walters, Michael Maguire, who won that premiership in the Super League with Wigan and won that premiership with Souths in 2014. He's a 2-time premiership winning coach. He's just come off winning that Origin series for the Blues, won the Pacific Championships for New Zealand last year, beating Australia 30-0 in the final. He has a far better coaching record than Kevin Walters, so they've replaced him with a better coach.
Yeah, but he's been sacked, Michael Maguire. So he must be bad.
Oh, yeah, according to Gordon Tallis.
Yeah, Kevin Walters has never been sacked twice.
Yeah. If you're judging coaches on whether they've been sacked or not, you're not going to have many coaches. Yeah, you're not going to have many coaches to pick from.
I think there was only 2 coaches in the 17 coaches that haven't been sacked.
Yeah, it's part of the job.
Yeah.
Part of the job of being a coach is getting sacked.
Yeah, even Des Hassel's been sacked. And Wayne Bennett has been sacked.
Yeah,
you know, so,
the best of the best.
Yeah, so, you know, I know the media goes to these ex-players and coaches and stuff for sound bites and stuff, and they hope to get it, but like... You just have to be realistic. Kevin Walters was never going to survive after the abysmal year they had and his reaction to it. It sounded like he didn't take any responsibility for it.
No.
And he just had a big tantrum. And they were like, well, man, if you can't take responsibility for things, you can't improve them.
Yeah, that's right. And I've got a line from a report here that I might just read out. So News Corp revealed one issue in particular. This was when Kevin Walters was coaching the Broncos. News Corp revealed one issue in particular where a member of the football staff would spend hours every week cutting up vision from the previous game for video review, only for it not to be used. I mean, it's very unprofessional to have a staff member put in all that work for it not to be used. You know, that's just amateur hour, and that's yet another thing that Billy Slater hasn't addressed when he's made that response.
It's a bit of a weird situation, eh? Imagine being that guy. I've done my work again that I know you're going to ignore.
I've done this work
every week,
and
you'd just be sitting there going, "Why am I here?"
Yeah, well,
am I going to get sacked?
Well, you'd have someone going, "Well, it doesn't matter what I do here; it's not going to be used." But so then they won't take their job seriously, and then that erodes the culture of the whole club.
Wouldn't you be thinking in the back of your mind, they never use the work I'm fully going to get fired
you'd be worried about it, wouldn't you? You'd be going, look, am I going to last much longer
Every
here?
Week I do this and they don't use it. Somebody's going to come by and go, you know how you do no useful work? We got to have a meeting with HR about the zero useful work that you're doing.
It's a double-edged sword, that one, isn't it? You might think, oh, my job's easy, but then you go, oh, hang on, I might be out the door here pretty soon. So, they're not using my work.
Yeah, still on the Broncos. You know, Allan Langer. Yeah. Well, Michael Maguire sacked Allan Langer, apparently, according to the Queensland media, Allan Langer was a long-time servant of the club and was the trainer and assistant coach, constantly on the field. The Broncos' 14th player, never off the field. And Steve Renouf has basically defended Michael Maguire, saying he had nothing to do with Allan Langer's Broncos sacking.
Yeah, and it was. I think he was having a dig at the club itself when he said it. The quote from Steve Renouf is, "The club are smart about how they do it. They made out that Madge made the call to get rid of Alfie after Kevy left, but that call was made weeks before Madge got there." So he's having a go at the Broncos power brokers as if to say, well, they've used Michael Maguire, the appointment of Michael Maguire as a way of going, oh, well, he's the one who's decided to move Allan Langer on when they'd actually decided to do it themselves. This is another example of an ex-Broncos player just sort of sniping at the club.
They're obviously to the Tigers.
Yeah, Gordon Tallis does it all the time, snipes at the club, and Gordon Tallis wants it both ways. He says he's a Titan and doesn't care about the Broncos anymore, but yet he seems to snap at the Broncos at every opportunity, and you go, well, do you care or not? You can't have it both ways
They're
here.
turning into the Tigers. You know, that's one of the things with the Tigers. They get hammered by all their ex-players because they have so many. All their ex-players, all their legends, all their ex-coaches, they get hammered. And this is what the Broncos are now. It used to not be like that. The Broncos ex-players were all like so supportive of the club. And now they just they've all turned on themselves like a pack of hyenas.
Yeah,
you know?
sort of. It's this posse of ex-players. It's sort of like, you know, if you screw one of them over, well, you screw all of them over. It's like this mob mentality that they've got. That if you sack Kevin Walters, well, we'll attack you. If you sack Allan Langer, we'll attack you. We'll come after you. Gordon Tallis, Steve Renouf in this instance. Yeah, Corey Parker. Yeah, exactly. So this is what they do. One ex-player gets screwed over in their eyes, and they just, as you said, they attack like a pack of hyenas. Why don't they look at the fact of the matter that they haven't won a premiership since 2006 and maybe think, okay, well, maybe we need to go in a different direction here and maybe not be doing what we've been doing over the last 18 years and going nowhere. We need to take it in a different direction. But no, they're sort of this mob that attack the club at every opportunity. And I don't think that it's good for the club. The club need to be looking forward. They can't be thinking about, appeasing these Broncos greats of the 1990s and the early to mid-2000s. And they need to be thinking about what they're going to be doing in 2025 and beyond here.
Think like this, right? In 2 years, next year, the Tigers are going to have their 20-year premiership reunion. Okay? And that's also that reunion.
So that's been a long 20 years, that one.
Reunion also coincides with the last time the Tigers had a premiership. Okay? The following year, the Broncos will have their 20-year reunion, and that will coincide with the last time, or possibly coincide with the last time the Broncos won a premiership. When have you ever seen the Broncos have a 20-year premiership reunion, and that's also the last time they won a premiership in history? And so all these ex-Broncos players turning the Broncos into the Tigers, they need to look at themselves and go, actually, maybe we're part of the problem. Maybe we're part of the reason why we're turning into the Tigers and not winning premierships for 20 years.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, they came into the comp in the late 80s. They won in 92, 93, 97. I know it was Super League, but they won Super League. 98, 2000, and 2006 were the years they won it. Yeah. So yeah, it's this is uncharted territory for the Broncos.
So they all need to look at themselves and go, oh, you know what, we need to contribute to fixing the culture, fixing the issue. They haven't been able to fix the issue since 2006. They've been on a downward slide. They made two grand finals. Yeah,
2015 and 2023 lost both by a whisker. Yeah, but who cares? They didn't win it.
What's the immortal words of Dom Toretto? It doesn't matter if you win by a metre or a mile, winning's winning.
No, and in a grand final, you'd probably rather lose by 30 than lose the way they lost.
Both times.
Yeah, I'd rather my team never be in the game than lose like that.
Well, 2015, let's move on to Ben Hunt. You don't want to be...
Yeah, well, that's a nice little segue for us.
The worst loss in the history of Ben Hunt's life.
Yeah. Well, we all know what happened there.
Yeah, and he'll never forget it. They still use it for highlight reels. But he's signed with the Broncos.
Yes.
And, well, has he signed with the Broncos? Because the NRL have an issue with his contract.
Yeah, well, the contract hasn't been registered yet. The salary cap order is expected to take a close look at that $350,000 discrepancy between his new deal, which is reported to be worth $600,000, and his old deal at the Dragons worth $950,000. Now, the way I would see it is, I think the Dragons were paying him overs. He wasn't worth the $950,000. Let's remember that he only had one finals appearance at the Dragons. That was back in his first season at the Dragons, back in 2018. Didn't guide them to a finals appearance since then. So a halfback like that who doesn't guide his team into the finals, I don't think he's worth $950,000. So if I was the Broncos, I'd say, well, look, we can't help it if his previous club were overpaying him. We think he's actually only really worth about $600,000 when you look at his overall record here.
Well, yeah, they have that thing where you're not allowed to get a pay reduction by a certain percentage. That's what the whole thing is about. Mm-hmm. Some weird salary cap rule that was implemented, I don't know when, where a player can't move to another club and be like underpaid to get into the salary cap, because there has been a history of that nonsense. And the Broncos are guilty of doing stuff like Darren Lockyer being on $200,000 a year when he was the number one player in the NRL, and I think they tried to register. Greg Inglis was meant to go to the Broncos, and it was on some ridiculously low amount.
Yeah. Well, look, the way I'd see it is, if he was signed to the Broncos for $200,000, I'd go, well, hang on a minute. But $600,000, I think that's fair enough.
I think all they really need to do is go ask the Titans, the Roosters. Who else was he going to? Bulldogs. What they were willing to offer him. And I guarantee you, all of them were willing to offer him like $500,000 to $600,000.
Yeah.
So Ben Hunt moved or bought a house in Queensland, and he was always going to go to Queensland, and everyone thought it was going to be the Titans. It was definitely going to be the Titans, and so on. Apparently, it was 1 hour. It's a 1 hour trip to the Titans training ground, or about an hour and 40 minutes to the Broncos training ground, where his house is, something like that, right? And it's obvious that the Broncos offered him a better deal. So what were the Titans offering him? Maybe, there is the thing at the Broncos where Michael Maguire doesn't want them all living really far away. So who knows what to go is with Ben Hunt's house now. But what were the Titans willing to offer him that he ended up going with the Broncos? I don't think he was ever any chance of going to the Bulldogs or the Roosters or anything like that, given he had already bought a house in Queensland and was obviously planning to relocate back to Queensland. It was only the Titans that were going to take him, but then it became the Broncos as well when Michael Maguire went in. You can look at whatever motivation you want, the cloud over Ezra Mam, Billy Walters being let go because his dad, whether he's nepotism or not. But all they really have to do is go ask the Titans, what were you offering that the Broncos beat?
Yeah.
They beat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and if you're the Broncos, you just say to the NRL, look, we can't help it if other clubs are mismanaging their salary cap by paying overs for players.
Exactly.
And you go to them and say, well, look, he hasn't guided his team to a finals appearance since 2018. You'd say that as well. So you could argue, well, clearly you'd argue that, well, while the Dragons were paying him more, well, he wasn't playing to that price tag. You could easily make that argument. And if you're the Broncos, well, you could also talk about his age. You could go, well, he's 34. He's not going to be around much longer. Yes. We're not paying for a 25-year-old half here. We're paying for a 34-year-old one. So there's plenty of weight behind the argument for the Broncos of that $350,000 pay cut being justified. Yeah,
and I'm really curious if the salary cap auditor would have done the same if he had gone to the Titans. Because obviously the Broncos are paying him more or offering him something better than what the Titans were. That's why he went to the Broncos.
Yeah.
And so what were the Titans doing, offering that were less than what... It could be like after career work or whatever, but what were the Titans offering that is less? And then you got to think, like, if he had gone to the Titans, would the salary cap auditor be refusing to register his contract because we have to investigate the discrepancy there? Or is it because it's only because he's gone to the Broncos?
Yeah, well, maybe it is only because he's gone to the Broncos, because, they've got a bunch of other players who are going to be earning upwards of $750,000 each next season. Payne Haas, Pat Carrigan, and Ezra Mam, who looks like he's probably going to be sitting out for most of, if not all of the season next year. But then again, they've decided to keep him, so they've got to take that hit.
Rumours of 14-week suspensions on that.
Right, okay, yeah, well, there you go. Reece Walsh will still be on around $650,000. for next year before that, club record $1.1 million salary kicks in from 2026. So I guess they'd use that argument. They go, well, the Reece Walsh deal doesn't kick in till the year after, so we've still got a bit of space for Ben Hunt this season. Although I don't know how they explain it once the Reece Walsh $1.1 million deal kicks in. I guess they probably have to do some other jockeying and other musical chairs around that.
But because Ben Hunt left, the guy who guided the Dragons to so many finals appearances, the Dragons have now been given the wooden spoon by bookies.
Yeah, I won't say the odds, obviously, because I don't want us to get,
Well, we got flagged last week for a copyright violation.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that why? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but it's all fixed now, and so if anyone wasn't able to find our episode last week, it's because it was flagged for copyright.
Do we know why that...
They never tell you.
So it was just... Yeah,
I don't tell you. I think the best example you can see of the YouTube behaviour is the Joe Rogan Donald Trump podcast episode where you weren't able to search for it. It came out, it got 30 million views in the first 4 hours, and then suddenly it disappeared off the internet. It was the most watched video on the internet ever, and it just disappeared and you couldn't search for it. And then YouTube said, it was an accident. They don't even give a reason to Joe Rogan. Nah. And then people are going on about how that's got 50 million views on YouTube, and oh my god, how did that get so many views and still disappear? Because their response, Joe Rogan and Elon Musk's response, was to put it on X, and then Joe Rogan's post got 50 million views, and Elon Musk got 70 million views in a week. So when you just look at YouTube, and they only have 50 million views, it's on everything. God knows how many people listen on Spotify, and it's got hundreds and hundreds. It's literally got hundreds of millions of listens and views. And YouTube still doesn't explain why they cut it. So we just got a copyright violation. There's nothing in our podcasts. We don't show videos. I don't know what the copyright violation would be. But yeah, I cleared it and now it's all good. I just clicked appeal and it was oh yeah, there is no copyright violation.
Yeah, hopefully it was just a glitch at their end.
It was an accident. But yeah, so the Dragons have given... Dragons are now the Spoon favourites. Mm-hmm. They've signed Lachlan Ilias as their halfback.
Yeah, and they've also signed Damien Cook, Clint Gutherson, and Val Holmes too. So.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty good goddamn spine, you'd have to say.
Yeah, I wouldn't have them as Spoon favourites.
They're definitely in the top 10 spines.
Yeah, as I said, they've lost Ben Hunt, but he didn't have. They say this report. He says the Ben Hunt effect is already being felt. Well, what was the Ben Hunt effect? He only made one final series in his whole time at the Dragons, and that was in 2018. There wasn't much of a Ben Hunt effect. They're now the favourites to win the Spoon, to have the most losses. So that obviously they think that the bookies have got them as more chance of winning the Spoon than the Tigers.
Can you
which is probably a bit harsh considering the Tigers have won the last 3 in a row, albeit they have new recruits, including Jerome Luai.
I wish there was a market to bet against the wooden spoon. This team definitely won't get the wooden spoon. Because I'd put money on the Dragons to definitely not get the wooden spoon.
Yeah, they have lost Lomax, so Lomax and Ben Hunt. But then again, some solid, Damien Cook, Clint Gutherson, Val Holmes, these are all quality players. Ilias, he's all right. He doesn't set the world on fire, but he's not the worst halfback in the competition.
Now you've got Gutherson, Ilias, Flanagan, and Cook. Again, that's not the best spine. I'd put it in the top 10, possibly, maybe top 12. Yeah, I'll go randomly top 12. That doesn't make them 12th. I just probably I might be able to find 11 spines better than them.
Yeah, look, I don't think they'd make the 8 with Flanagan and Ilias in the halves, but I don't think they'll come last either.
No. The thing with it is all you got to wonder is, can Shane Flanagan get more out of Kyle Flanagan and Lachlan Ilias to be able to guide them to the 8. They've got to get... the Dragons' main issue all year was just, coming in and out of games. And when they went out of games, they couldn't come back in. Or if they did come back in, it'd be in the last 10 minutes where they scored 28 points and it's too little too late. That's the outlier, right? Because at some point in every game, they'd go out of the game. And it could be in the first minute or it could be in the 75th minute. and they just get smashed in that time, and they were never able to turn it back around. There wasn't games really during the year where they were like in the game dominating. You know, the other team started to get some of the momentum back, and the Dragons were able to shut that down. As soon as the other team started getting momentum back, or started to get any momentum, Dragons were gone. You know, so he's got to be able to fix that, and that's going to come from defence. So it's going to come down to I don't think the halves and the fullback and the spine basically are really the Dragons' main issue. They need to get better mindset and defence.
This is the thing, and look, that's probably effective salary cap management, I would say. Letting go of Ben Hunt, so freeing up $950,000, a player who wasn't playing to a $950,000 price tag. And someone like a Lachlan Ilias, well, you get him cheap because he was struggling to find another club. He was. He wouldn't be on much money. I don't have his salary in front of me. It wouldn't be very high.
It's like, I saw like between 350 and 550.
Okay,
See, the thing with him was he was going okay for the Rabbitohs, and then he got dropped because the Rabbitohs were going poorly. And then he went to...
And he got injured too.
Well, he got rent to reserve grade, and he is the highlight of why they went overboard on incidental contact with kicker legs.
Yeah.
Because what happened to him was he was kicking a ball, and the opposing player ran into his leg while his leg was in the air and snapped his leg in half. And so when you look at these ones during the year where, he barely touched him, the reason they're getting penalised, just go watch the Lachlan Ilias. It's grainy, shitty, mobile phone footage basically, but you can see like, maybe they do actually need to go. That's harsh, gross. But yeah, so the last year hasn't been the best for him, but he's the thing I like about that guy is he's a Dragons, like diehard Dragons supporter. So,
there you go. So you got someone who's passionate about the club. Yeah. And you know what? I think you mentioned he might have been on 350.
Somewhere between 350 and 550.
All right, so let's say would I let go of Ben Hunt for 950 and sign Lachlan Ilias on 350 and free up 600 grand? Yeah, I probably would. Yeah. So I think that's an effective salary cap move. I guess the question mark now is what do they do with that? If it is 600 grand that they've freed up, what do they do with that 600 grand? So that's the question now, but I think that's an effective salary cap move.
Defensive forwards, boys. Defensive forwards. And some great news for, the redemption of Todd Carney continues. He's now gone to the Titans as a pathways coach. So basically, he's taken up kind of the same role as Mitchell Pearce at the Roosters, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Dealing with the younger halves and stuff. That's a good news story. I love that.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like, obviously you had a check at history, Todd Carney. There was that bubbler incident, but there was a lot more than that.
A lot more.
He did get banned from his hometown of Goulburn for a year, so we shouldn't forget that either. There was a lot. That's one misconception about Todd Carney. A lot of people, you talk to him about it, they go, no big deal, it was only the bubbler incident. It's like, no, there was a lot more than that. He did get banned from a town. We should remember that.
He got sacked from Canberra for repeated infringements. Things like that. But he went to rehab, I think, 2 years ago.
And it seems like he's getting his life
not because
track.
His lawyer told him to, but because he knew he split with his partner, lost access to his children, I think.
Yeah, so he was going through a rough trot.
And his rough trot was from when he played rugby league. All the way through to like a couple of years ago. So now he's completely sober, doesn't do anything. And
so it sounds like he has got his house in order, and good on him. And I mean that's great that he's got his house in order. He's got his life back together, and he's going to now put that to good use by mentoring young players at the Titans, helping them. And obviously he would have learned a lot in his time, and he's made a lot of mistakes that he's been able to learn from. So that's going to be good advice that he's going to be able to give to those Titans young players now. So it is a feel-good story, and look good on him.
Yeah, I think so. Well, one other thing that happened is, a couple of weeks ago, Mark Geyer was let go from Triple M, which is the dumbest move in the history of radio, I think. And they've finally announced his replacements.
Yeah.
And it's Beau Ryan and Aaron Woods will now head, with Natasha Belling, I think is the other one.
Yeah.
Will now head up the morning show on Triple M.
Yeah.
That is not a way to win the ratings war there.
I just don't understand this now. Look, MG, he's somebody who he speaks from the heart. He's honest. He's authentic. And I'll tell you what, I'm guessing that Triple M, a large part of their audience would be in MG's area of Penrith. That'll be so they're alienating a large portion of their audience by making this decision. The people of Penrith will not be happy with this decision at all. And then you look at, and it's not just that they've got rid of MG, it's who they've replaced him with. Beau Ryan, he's not funny. He's just not. He's not. He tries to appear to be funny. He's just not funny. Aaron Woods, he's had a bit of time in the media, a little bit of time. He doesn't seem that funny to me. And look, Natasha Belling, I don't know a lot about her. All I know, I think she used to read the news on Channel 10, but she's a newsreader. She's not known for her personality or anything. She reads the news, so she's a straight down the line newsreader. And you've got her with two people who seemingly aren't very funny to me.
Yeah, well, Beau Ryan is 1990s footy show funny.
To be fair, I think he's more, sort of later footy show days funny, where he's not very funny. I think 1990s the footy show was a lot funnier than what it was when Beau Ryan was on it.
Mid-2000s.
Or mid to late 2010s footy show funny.
The pathway of the down.
Yeah, the pathway to it being axed funny.
Natasha Belling's been on that morning show for a while, reading the news and contributing and stuff, but mainly she does the news updates.
That's the thing, and I'm not having a go at her. I'm just saying she's a newsreader.
Yeah. I stopped. So I normally listen to podcasts or audiobooks when I drive in the morning, which started. Okay, now again, I'm only the anecdotal evidence. I can't tell you the truth of the matter or how it will affect. But it started when MG left the morning show when the morning, whatever, it was the grill team with Matty Johns, Gus Wallen and MG. And first Matty Johns left, then Gus Wallen left, and then MG was left. So they changed it to Lawrence Mooney and I don't know. I can't remember who it was. And then that was, Lawrence Mooney got the sack and they brought back MG, or maybe there was some crossover there. But I started listening to it again because MG was on it. Like I was like, I don't have anything to listen to. I don't have any audiobooks, so I won't bother going and finding one. Now I have the what's it called? The Triple M morning thing again, so it's fine. And then now he's off, so I'm off Triple M again. It changed to Mark Geyer and Mick Malloy, which is I still listen to, mainly for Mark Geyer. Mick Malloy's okay. But yeah, it's just a weird... And it was really poorly done as well, typical of the media. All these companies talk about being family and being loyal and that kind of stuff, but he just disappeared. Yeah. Just disappeared, and then he changed his Instagram bio, to X, Triple M something or something like that, and everyone was like, wait, did MG get fired? And then they announced, we're doing a whole new morning show next year. And I was like, with MG? Yeah. Is it with MG? Yeah. Because we only listen because
it's amazing how they can just turn around and shaft you when it suits them, isn't it? And I was even reading, just to go slightly off topic, I was even reading, I've forgotten his name, but one of the hosts on Kiss FM, Kyle and Jackie O's station, he hosted at night time on Kyle and Jackie O's station, and he's been sacked because they're saying it's because they got to pay Kyle and Jackie O $200 million over the next 10 years, so they've had to axe the nighttime host, who supposedly is very talented, to free up the funds for Kyle and Jackie O. So you got to be careful in the media industry. Any time they can just turn around and shaft you when you least suspect it. So yeah, it's sad. It's sad for an industry that seems to be continually on the decline by the looks of it.
It's all about the podcast now. Screw the mainstream media. Ooh, yeah.
That's the thing. The mainstream media, they're not honest anyway.
They're not mainstream anymore, and that's the main thing. They lie all the time.
Yeah, they're not honest. They don't tell you what they really think. So you just sort of go, well, if you're going to treat people like this, well, stuff you and just listen to podcasts.
Yeah, they lie too much, and that's the You know,
they're too scared of upsetting people. They're all worried about their own back and not upsetting, the establishment, as, Donald Trump likes to call it. Yeah. So, you go, well, stuff you. Listen to podcasts where there's far more honesty.
Yeah, exactly. I was listening to a terrible podcast, actually, Jake Matthews. Nobody should listen to Jake Matthews' podcast.
Who's Jake Matthews?
He's an ex-UFC fighter. And,
right. What is it, boring or something?
No, he's just a conspiracy theorist and kind of racist.
Right.
It's like, I'm not racist, but kind of guy.
Yeah,
he had David Duke on recently. I like to listen to... One of my beliefs is you should listen to people you don't agree with so you can understand what they say, so you can actually properly understand how to disagree with them. So when I went on a deep dive on Andrew Tate, the grifter, I listened to all of his long-form podcasts. I listened to all of his interviews. And it'd be funny when I criticize him and people, like, respond to me and say, oh, you only think that because you only see the TikTok shorts. I'm like, no, I listened to his whole grift. It's still like this. Obviously, you have to find your podcast, but mainstream media, what they call mainstream media, there's a reason they're losing ratings, and they're doing stupid. It's because they lie and they do stupid stuff like fire Mark Geyer to bring on Beau Ryan and Aaron Woods. Yeah,
and could I just add on this story? Southern Cross Audio SCA Chief Content Officer Dave Cameron thanked MG for his services. And a quote from him was, "We sincerely hope he will be a part of the Triple M family again at some stage in the future, and we wish him all the best." Now, that's a cop-out. You've just fired him. Don't turn around and say, "Oh, we sincerely hope he'll be a part of Triple M family." You're not a family. You've just shafted. You've just shafted one of your most loyal hosts who's given you 17 years of service with no good reason to get rid of him. Don't turn around and say, "Oh, we hope he'll be part of the Triple M family again." What a cop-out. It's family. Give me a break. You've just sacked the guy. What two-faced rubbish nonsense from this Dave Cameron.
No, it's a family. They're all family.
What a load of garbage.
Every single one of them is a family.
Absolute garbage. Stop treating people like they're fools. Give us a break.
I'd love to see a supercut of all the times that a media organisation has called their staff family.
Come on, call it for what it is. It's an employer-employee relationship.
So, still on media, Fatty Vautin has retired from television now.
Yes.
So this one's not bad. The television didn't do anything to him. So they kept him around, I guess, because he must have been family. But he has announced his retirement. He's been doing commentary since the footy show.
33 years, yeah. Of course, he was the host of the footy show. He's quit. He's quit Channel 9. I just want to say I had some personal dealings with him. I got to go on the show a couple of times with him, and I interviewed him. And he's one of the good guys of the media, one of the nice guys. I just wanted to put that out there. Obviously, I'm not claiming to be close friends with him or anything. I had very limited dealings with him, but I just thought it was worth saying. Obviously, there's a lot of bad guys in this industry. There's not as many good guys, unfortunately, but Paul Vautin was one of the good guys, and I just wanted to put that out there, if that's all right.
Legend of the media, and hope he enjoys his retirement.
Absolutely. And he said there were things that irritated him about the game, like the 6 again and the dropouts that are contested. So I think these new rule changes, and he didn't mention it there, but maybe the constant... I'm guessing he's the type who wouldn't like the constant bunker reviews and captain's challenges either. I think he's the type of old school sort of guy who would like to see the game flowing as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There was some criticism about that. It's so stupid. People on the internet were like, "Oh, he's just a dinosaur complaining about the changes." It's like, nah, bro. It's hard to sit there and watch and be a commentator. Seriously, hard to be a commentator on a game that you're not enjoying. You mentioned it. Yeah, he did say that. He said there was one game where he got there, and in the second half, he thought, "Oh, geez, I'm so bored," and he never felt like that before. So that was an indication to him where he thought, "Well, right, I'm done here." And I guess with all the money he would have earned over his career, he doesn't need to work another day and come up to it. I gave him props for it, not criticism. He's like, he realised he's no longer enjoying the game, so he can't contribute.
Yeah, and he said he doesn't want to be that cranky old guy who complains about a sport that made him what he is. So
how can anyone criticise that decision? He's trying to make sure that the game stays entertaining, and he knows that he can't contribute because he's not enjoying it. He's not a dinosaur. Like,
Yeah, and I think he got better as a commentator as he got older as well. I guess as you get a little bit older, you stop caring what people think as much, and you just shoot from the hip. And I think he did that. He got really good to listen to in his later years because he just called it as he sees it. He probably knew he didn't have long to go, and he was just going to shoot from the hip. And his commentary was really good. He was really honest, and obviously. That run he had on the Footy Show for that number of years, I think it might have been 24 or 25 years he was host of the Footy Show. So, obviously you don't host a TV show in prime time for that amount of time and not know what you're doing. So he had a lot going for him as a media personality and, good luck to the guy. I hope he enjoys his retirement.
Have fun, Fatty.
Yeah.
That's it for Rugby League. Don't worry, next week there'll be plenty more.
Yes.
On to a small amount of cricket news because obviously the next test starts on Friday.
That's what I thought. I thought no point going into detail on cricket too much because the test is going to start on Friday.
Nothing's happened except for some possible injuries.
Yeah, so Josh Hazelwood's out of the second test with that side strain. It's not been confirmed yet, but it looks like Scott Boland's going to come in for him into the team. Mitch Marsh, there's doubts, firstly over whether he does play. Even if he does play, he may not bowl. He may just bat. He pulled up sore after sending down 17 overs in the first test. I think they are keen to play him just as a batsman, even if he can't bowl. Since his recall against England at Headingley last year, where he made 100, he's Australia's leading run scorer with 657 runs at an average of 41.06. Only the retired David Warner and the injured Cameron Green have a higher average in that period. So there is merit to that argument that, you should just play him just as a batsman, even if he can't bowl in this game. Marnus Labuschagne had another extensive net session as he searches for form. Steve Smith took a blow on the fingers, but he was soon able to resume batting. We're looking for a lot more from those two in this second test.
Doesn't really matter.
That's for sure. And also I just wanted to point out as well, opener Sam Constas made 107 in that PM's 11 game on the weekend against India in Canberra. He was man of the match. It was a day-night game played with the pink ball, just as the second test will be on Friday in Adelaide. And he also made those runs against pretty much the Indian test attack. Siraj, Rana, Reddy and Sundar all bowled in that PM's 11 game. They all played in the first test, so the only one who didn't play in the two-at game was Jasprit Bumrah. So he pretty much made that 100 against the Indian test attack. And so my argument is, why can't they just move McSweeney down to number 3, which is his preferred position, open with Constas and drop Labuschagne? I would have thought, why don't you just do that straight away? Make the call now. Why wait for Labuschagne to fail again and lose another test before you make the call? You've got to look at that and go, Constas, he's going better than Labuschagne, so let's just put Constas in and move McSweeney down to number 3 and drop Labuschagne.
The cricket, more than any other sport, is such an old boys sport.
They just take too long to make justifiable selection decisions.
We'll see what happens on Friday in Adelaide, day-night test. And hopefully Australia can actually do something this time. There's been a new doping ban in the tennis.
Yes.
And everybody has weighed in, including me.
Yes.
But Iga Swiatek has been suspended for 2 months? 1 month.
1 month.
1 month. 1 month for an accidental... it was a tainted supplement. Again, so tainted supplements do actually happen. If you have a tainted supplement, Yoel Romero got independently rich by suing a supplement company when he had a tainted supplement and forced him to test positive. Because the reason I always talk about the difference between something like that and Yannick Sinner is you look at the tainted supplement and you take it all the time and it's legal and it has all of the ingredients on it that none of them are illegal and you're allowed, and then one day you pop and go, what? I didn't do anything illegal. let's go test all of the stuff I take, and they find like, oh, this supplement that you have been taking for the past 10 years and has no issue, and everything on it says it's tested and there's nothing illegal in it, is tainted. You know, that's not her fault. And yet she got a month's suspension, and Yannick Sinner didn't.
Yeah, and I guess an issue is, so it was a contamination of a non-prescription medication, melatonin. Swiatek claimed she was using the medication for issues with jet lag and sleeping.
All athletes take melatonin, all of them.
Yeah. Now the issue is that we talked about it was a contamination and a contaminated supplement. Now Simona Halep, you might remember, had a similar issue, a contaminated supplement. But she actually copped a 9-month ban, which actually turned out to be 18 months of her not playing. So when they went through the whole process of, having it overturned, it actually, the ban was officially 9 months, but she went at 18 months without playing. So Simona Halep's come out and going, well, why was I sidelined for 18 months when I did the same thing as Swiatek, and Swiatek gets a 1-month ban? There is that way of looking at it as well.
Yeah,
you go, well,
ridiculous.
Simona Halep's been hard done by here.
Well, she doesn't have a good enough lawyer. And Swiatek doesn't have a good enough lawyer to get the Yannick Sinner treatment.
Yeah, well, it just seems like favours are being done for the superstar players here.
It's beyond ridiculous, honestly. Like I think I've mentioned it before. You watch Jordan Burroughs, because wrestlers in America are some of the most tested athletes in the world. Watch Jordan Burroughs on Joe Rogan, and he accepts nothing from Joe Rogan. Everybody who goes on Joe Rogan will give them coffee, water, Killcliff drinks that have CBD in them, which is legal. And Jordan Burroughs, so strict in himself, says, nah, I don't want. Like, honest, that's how strict they are, right? Then you have people like Yannick Sinner, whose masseuse apparently uses a cream that has steroids in it. That would never happen with Jordan Burroughs. You know? That would never happen. Because he would go to his masseuse, what creams you've been using? You know, they are so strict about it, the guys like that. Then you have someone like Iga Swiatek.
Yeah.
Swiatek. Who gets a tainted melatonin pill, so it's a supplement. Melatonin helps you sleep. All athletes take it. They don't take it all the time, but they take it when they're having trouble sleeping, and gets 1 month. And then Halep has a tainted supplement, totally not her fault, and gets 9 months, 18 months.
Yeah.
So it's so ridiculous. We talk about it in rugby league, like the superstars get away with so much more than the up and coming or fresh guys.
Yeah.
But it's beyond ridiculous. Swiatek shouldn't have been banned. Neither should Halep. Yannick Sinner should have.
And this, the ITIA accepted Swiatek's explanation. The positive result was unintentional and caused by the contamination of a supplement. Well, that's the same with Simona Halep. Yeah. So why was Simona Halep effectively banned for 18 months? This ITIA, they just go soft on the star players like Swiatek and Yannick Sinner. What's a 1 month ban? What is that? You may as well not give her any ban if you're going to give her a 1 month ban.
Any matches to play? She's going to be back in time for Australian Open. She's at world number 1, right?
I think she's just gone down to number 2 momentarily.
She was the world
she was. Yeah, I think I don't have it in front of me. I've got a couple of issues searching for stuff on this laptop, but I think Arena Sabalenka is the number 1 now.
Yeah. So, and what's Halep's ranking?
Look, I think she has sort of dropped out of the picture, but feel free to look that one up.
2024 singles ranking 882.
Yeah, so she's
her
dropped
highest
off.
was 2020 at number 2.
So she hasn't been the same since she came back from the ban, Halep.
Yeah,
it's basically ruined her career.
And that's
and it's not fair. It's not fair that she was sidelined for 18 months. While Swiatek only gets a month and Yannick Sinner gets a slap on the wrist. Yannick Sinner got prize money from a tournament and ranking points from a tournament. What is this?
On steroids.
What is this? What is the ITIA doing? All they do is come out and say, oh yeah, it was unintentional, Well, the athlete has responsibility over their own body. And why are they accepting Jannik Sinner's explanation anyway? As we've said a million times on this podcast, that could have been all that was left in his system, that billionth of a gram.
It's like accidental contamination is so different to, oh, my masseuse had a steroid cream and it was left on his hands. It's so different.
Yeah.
You know, like I talked about Khalil Roundtree. He had a tainted supplement. He copped the ban. I accept his ban.
Yeah.
Yoel Romero, I just mentioned. He copped the ban. I don't know if he copped the ban, but he sued the supplement company for like $40 million and won. Crazy. Yeah. Because those tainted supplements happen, and it's really crap. Like, you have to think about that, right? In Australia, I think Body Science is the only local Australian brand that you can get lab tested. Some of their supplements are lab tested to avoid contamination, right? Mm. So if you get like, no, I don't want to speak out. I think ASN doesn't, or maybe they have some. But if you buy, like, I've talked to professional athletes, you know, and I'll be like, oh, do you want, like, MMA fighters in this very room? Where I'm like, do you want, you know, you get his cheap supplement or whatever, you can get creatine from here, and they go, I can't risk it. They know, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, they know, like, I can't risk that one because I don't know that one's independently lab tested to make sure that the batch isn't tainted. Okay, like, that's it. And then they're like, thanks, very appreciative, you know. Like, I talked about BPC 157 with Gase off camera after our podcast. BPC 157 is completely banned for all athletes. It's kind of recently banned. But she would I won't go anywhere near it, you know, because she's a professional MMA fighter and she's going to get drug tested. So they know. But things like, oh, my masseuse had massage cream, like, you should know also. Because there's the risk of steroid creams rubbing off onto you. And so when you have a masseuse, the masseuse should know. Mm. Like, oh, dude, I took this cream. You know. Professional athletes who get drug tested surround themselves with people who know the rules as well. Mm. So for me, Jannik Sinner's one never held weight, and it's so unfair for Iga Swiatek and Simona Halep to have such varied suspensions. Beyond ridiculous, to be honest.
How does Halep get effectively an 18-month ban and Jannik Sinner gets no suspension?
Well, the reason Khalil Roundtree got 3 months suspension, which he accepted, and I gave him full props for accepting it, self-reported, was because whatever the drug was, it's a 3-month cycle. Okay, so it has to cycle out of his system so he can get a clean drug test. Mm. And that's the way, at the bare minimum, if you're going to suspend someone for accidental, like, again, very clearly, for tainted supplements. Tainted supplements is a very different thing to any other accidental thing. If you're going to suspend, the suspension should be based on that cycle. Yeah. And if they come out and they say, yeah, because Halep was on, I don't know the names of steroids, right? Priborestaurodol, which takes 18 months or 9 months to get out of your system, fair enough. Whereas Swiatek was on Super 7143, which only takes 2 weeks to get out of your system, fair enough. You know, because, like, I know with MMA fighters, they have to have a minimum of 2 clean tests every 6 months or something like that in the UFC. Something like that, you know. So if you accidentally taint, like Khalil Roundtree did, and they know this is the one that takes 3 months to cycle out, you can't fight because you won't get a negative test. And he's like, cool, no dramas. All right. But yeah, like there are no variations in that Swiatek should get 1 month and Halep. There's no justification for it. Zero justification, except for ranking.
Yeah.
And that's not a justification.
Yeah, the golden rule of our podcast is bag Jannik Sinner at the end of the podcast to avoid his lawyers.
100%, allegedly. And we're back after technical difficulties. I believe we just finished with Jannik Sinner's alleged doping.
Yeah, we were just, I'm not sure if we got it before, but we were just saying how we like to talk about Jannik Sinner at the end of the podcast so his lawyers won't see us and come after us for what we say about him. But
very, very expensive lawyers.
Yes. Yeah, look, in terms of tennis authorities, I think they much prefer to take a head in the sand approach on these matters. That they prefer, if there's widespread doping in their sport, which there may be, who knows, they prefer not to know about it. They don't want to know about it.
Yeah, they don't know how to do it.
No.
They just don't, and it's beyond ridiculous, and it'll keep making them look foolish anytime something like this happens. And one of the things that happens in situations like this is players, coaches, organisations and countries start to learn how far they can push it and start exploiting it. You know, you can see with the Russian Olympics team, I think they get to come back in 2040 or something like that. You can see with the Sharks and whichever team it was in the Essendon, like they work out how they can push it and they push it.
Yeah.
And they'll just keep going until it becomes ridiculous. Things like the UFC really are. There's a whole thing in the UFC where everyone says, you know, basically everyone is on steroids except my favourite fighters.
Yeah.
None of the guys I like would do steroids. Yeah, sure, bro. Yeah. And there are like all the rumours about like Cheeto Vera talked about like you can pay $20,000 to get a dude in Mexico to take you up a mountain on a donkey to a fully equipped training facility where you can take all the steroids you want, and WADA is not able to get there because they can't. No one will take the $20,000 to take them. And the Dagestanis, like there was a rumor about the Dagestani team, people training in a mosque because they're not allowed to be tested while they're in religious locations. Stuff like that will always come out, but the UFC is really good with the doping. You know, out of all of the sports in the world that I follow, I think they are like really the number one example. And they don't have ridiculous things. Except for John Jones. He's an exception because Dana White loves John Jones and lets him get away with everything he wants.
Yeah, honestly, I think tennis just doesn't want to know about it.
No, they just don't.
No.
It's beyond ridiculous.
I think if it were up to them, they just wouldn't test for drugs, and so they just wouldn't have to deal with it.
The reason they have to is because of the Olympics. You know, because to be part of the Olympics, you have to have a professional organisation that is willing to organise the event. And you have to be a part of a professional organisation, you have to have doping tests in place and stuff like that. So seriously, the only reason they would do it. Yeah. Anyway, that's tennis for the week. One last thing, SmartB ambassador Gase Sanita will fight Anastasiya Korsch on Shuriken Fight Series this Saturday. She's going for 3 wins in a row after winning her last 2 fights in dominant fashion. She's a noted grappler. 2 fights ago, she won by rear naked choke. Last fight, she won by really great striking. And this time, Anastasiya is a wrestler. Actually, I think a New Zealand Olympic wrestler. So it should be a good fight. It'll be on UFC Fight Pass starting at 6:30. That's when the card starts. I don't know exactly when Gase will be.
A nice one. You think she'll win?
Yeah, I think she will. She's really improved her striking. Working with Johnny and Richie from Athlete's Edge, really improved her striking, and she's looking like a more rounded MMA fighter now, not just relying on the once I get my hands on you, you go onto the ground like a basher. She's going to have a good wrestling kind of exchange probably with Anastasiya, but Gase will be able to, I think, be superior in the stand-up, so I'll be watching, and good luck, Gase. That's it for the week. Don't forget to sign up to SmartB to get your daily news and stuff to your inbox, and follow at SmartB app on social medias. Make sure you head to optimumcbd.store for all your CBD needs. I use them, take CBD every day for recovery. I can see on my watch that tracks my sleep the days that I don't take CBD to recover. I have terrible sleep and terrible recovery, and I don't feel like training that day. So it definitely works.
I'm with you on the terrible sleep. That's me.
And we'll see everybody next week, and hopefully we can find out. Well, hopefully we have some good news about the Australia-India test.
Yep, we'll see how that goes. I'll tell you what, if they get beaten and they go down 2-0, the knives will be out for sure, I would have thought at that stage.
Suck 'em all! Alright, see everybody next week. Have a good one, Dan, and bye, Producer Chair.
Thanks, John.